How's it going, YouTube? Yeah, Patmac here, bringing you the power rankings for the Mythical Mayhem League. This is the second time we've done this season, and we have several returning coaches and several new coaches to the league, which is very exciting. Just a couple of things about the league, just so you have some context. Coaches had, I think it was 87 points. So there's just a points draft, no tiers or anything like that. They could pick between 10 and 11 Pokemon. And just like last season for Mythical Mayhem, we had mythical Pokemon and restricted Pokemon, and coaches were limited to no more than 2 in any combination of restricted and mythical Pokemon. And I think that's about it. It's going to be home moveset, so they can use like more Pokemon have Follow Me, more Pokemon have Tailwind. Those are probably the most important moves, at least in terms of a double aspect. And yeah, I think that's about it. I am also joined by Mismag. They have a YouTube channel that they've been doing for a while now, right?
Yep, a little bit.
Yeah, so they're gonna join me. We're gonna chat about the teams, do some power rankings for it. And Mismag hasn't done a power rankings with me before, so I'm just gonna give you a little overview of what our plan is. I'm going to show teams in drafting order, so not what I think is the most powerful from least powerful. It's just who had first pick and then roll from there. And then at the end, I'll have a graphic that has my ordering for power rankings. And then I'll get your reaction once we get to that point, as well as potentially have a graphic for your power rankings at the end, if that sounds good with you.
Sounds great.
Sweet. All right. So let's go and get in on this. So the first team, first pick of the draft was the Pogging Porygons. So yeah, what do you think of this team?
I like the amount of support pieces this team has. The Sableye, the Wyvern, the Uxie, the Regieleki is great speed control on the fast end. But I have to say the restricted combo leaves me very puzzled. I get that it's like one real strong physical attacker, hashtag Zacian-Crowned, and Kieran White hits really hard on the special side, but it just, like, I'm not seeing too much of the synergy other than just, like, it being, like, a really fast, like, hyper-offensive team, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I think the big selling point for these two together is just, like, how do you prep for such a physically offensive Pokemon like Zacian and a specially offensive Pokemon like Kieran White? Like, no single Pokemon can check both of those in any sense, which makes it pretty tough.
That's true.
But yeah, I agree. Like, the support pieces for this team are pretty nice. I do think that this team could potentially struggle with Trick Room if coaches decide to bring that, but for the most part, like, this team is just fast, offensive, hit super hard.
Yeah, and the Sableye is like a really pivotal piece to this team because even in those Trick Room matchups, like, you can just click Quash and kind of just do it for the rest of the team.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And it's kind of nice to have like Uxie to potentially reverse Trick Room. I forget if Uxie has Imprison, so that might be a way to, like, completely stop it from going up at all. If that's even a concern.
Right. I think all of the Lake Trio get imprisoned. I'm also not sure. I just know it's all good.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, and I know it has Trick Room, and it's super bulky, so, like, you can reverse it fairly easily. Unless you get taunted, which, like, I guess, like, it would be kind of nice to have taunt against this team, basically just for Sableye. So maybe not, actually. I can't imagine coaches wanting to bring taunt against this team.
I think there's too much offensive pressure for them to taunt, but if for some reason you could really stall out, like, the restricted pair, like Zacian and Kieran White, you could just stall out that offense, the team might run out of steam.
I agree, because actually I think that aside from those two Pokemon, and I guess Regieleki also, like, the team doesn't seem like it has that much offensive pressure to back those two up. So
yeah, it's like Roserade is pretty strong on the special side, and Regieleki also fairly strong. Seismitoad is alright, but, like, the rest of them not too much offensive pressure. Noivern is also just kind of okay.
Yeah, it's. I think it'll be able to set up Tailwind, but, like, aside from that, I don't know if I'm too scared of it. So I don't know. It's a pretty sweet team, though, and definitely gives everyone a baseline for what kind of teams they might see throughout the season. All right, so let's go and take a look at this next team here. So next we have the Georgia Granbulldawgs. And I remember looking at this team and kind of thinking, like, what's going on? You know, like, I think that there's the weather mode with, like, Hippowdon and Stoutland, which I think in kind of a normal VGC is, like, a fairly nice combo, but I think in this format it's just not strong enough for what you want to see. Like, I think it's more likely that you're going to need to Intimidate to kind of stop those really strong physical attackers, like a Zacian, for example. And then, like, I think, yeah, I mean, we have, like, Trick Room and Tailwind, which is nice to have for both of these, and, like, Pokemon that can be fairly strong in Trick Room with, like, a Azumarill or a Alola Marowak, but, like, there's no Sun for Venusaur. Like, I'm not really seeing a whole lot of synergies for the Thunderous Therian. So, like, I kind of look at this team and go, like, what's really going on here? What do you think?
Yeah, I will say that the one mon on this team I just don't understand why it's here is that Venusaur. It's just really confusing me. There's no Sun synergy at all. I get why the Hydreigon is kind of there. It does have access to beat up if you wanted to do beat up justified for the Keldeo. I do agree with you that the Sand combination is a little bit lacking on offense. I think Stoutland is just so much more of a better support piece, like with the fast Sand. Crobat's good for Tailwinds. Jiraiya's just good at being annoying. But yeah, it does seem like just a lot of pieces that don't quite fit, but maybe they know something we don't.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, one thing I think that is really nice here with Jirachi is it does have Follow Me for this particular format. So, like, Follow Me and then, like, Belly Drum with Azumarill, and then maybe, like, I don't know, Protect and Trick Room. Maybe, I guess, like, Protect, Trick Room, Belly Drum, Follow Me, and, like, then you can kind of go crazy with Azumarill. I think that's a potential, like, game-winning combination of moves. But, like, if you prep for that, then I feel like you're in a fairly good spot to be able to deal with the rest of the team. So
yeah, that's fair. There's quite a I think it's balanced fairly well on type defenses, but I'm not so sure about, like, internal synergy.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there. So, all right, let's take a look at our next team here. We have the Midland Marowaks. And what are your first thoughts on seeing this team?
I think this team could really benefit from a Lightning Rod user, is my very first thought.
Definitely. You
have both the Volcanion and the Ho just, like, super weak to the electric, and then if that wasn't bad enough, you got the Arrow in there as well, and the Salamence taking at least neutral from it. So the Nidoking is going to have a lot of work to do, to put it bluntly. Other than that, I do like the combos I see. You got the Shao for some coaching stuff. I think Gourgeist is absolutely fantastic in draft because of how flexible it is. Aegislash is, like, okay in non-max, and Silvally can kind of patch holes in whatever is left. Since you did bring up that a lot more mons get Follow Me in this format, I guess that bumps up Duraludon's value as well, but overall, it seems like a very physically offensive team, which I feel like can be exploited.
I actually feel like it has a fairly good mix. Like, Nidoking can be special, Volcanion is special, Duraludon special, Aegislash could be mixed as well. I don't know, I kind of feel like there's a mix of typings here, or at least in terms of physical versus special offense. One thing that kind of, I remember when I was looking at this team that seems a little bit off is the Duraludon. Like, I think I really like the Aegislash, but I feel like having... like, this team is missing a fairy, which would be kind of nice, just in a general sense. But, like, yeah, Duraludon feels a little out of place, like Double Dragon, Double Steel. I don't know if it's necessary to have, you know?
Yeah, that's true. I can agree with you. I didn't even notice that at first. There was no fairy type on this field, and that's kind of one of the essential typings.
Yeah, totally agree. Like, very good offensive typing, very good defensive typing, and when you combine that, it's just a really good type, you know?
Right.
I do like that this team has a good mix of speed control, too. Like, we have Tailwind from Aerodactyl, we have Trick Room from Gourgeist, and actually, I guess that might be it. But just having the option to go fast or slow, I think, is really cool.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a balance of good speed control in this team, and now that you brought up the point about some of these mons here that can go special, it's not as bad as I thought. Like I just saw so many physically offensive threats like when I first looked at this team, and Xiao kind of supports everything on this team pretty well, actually.
Yeah, definitely. Like having those coaching boosts would be really nice. Like, oh my god, could you imagine coaching Ho-Oh? Like that Pokemon is just unkillable now.
Yep.
That would be. Oh my god, I didn't even think about it until just now. Whoa.
And then you get the wide guard to protect yourself from the 4 times weak rock slide. So like, yeah.
Sounds real nice. Yeah, I think there's double wide guard
like
actually.
Yeah.
It kind of sneaks up on you, you know. I remember when I was putting together my tier list. So spoilers, I have this team fairly high, but I remember first looking at it and I was like, this season is so. And then I started looking at it more. I was like, you know, every Pokemon on this team is really solid. You know, like even some of their lower tier picks, like I would definitely consider bringing. I think we had Gourgeist tiered fairly low in the league, and like you mentioned how flexible that mon is, just as all the different typings. I think it works really nice with Aegislash too. Like, yeah, let's just make Shadow Ball always super effective. Seems really solid.
Yeah, and actually, it's funny that you say. I'm really keen on Gourgeist because like you can run it at 4 different speed tiers, and then you get like Frisk. But they also have the Silvally for the 17, 18 different typings. Actually, I didn't even consider about how those synergies play a role, and I think it gets Tailwind in this format.
Oh, I think you're right actually. Okay, I missed that Silvally had. Actually, Salamence has Tailwind too. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, so I definitely think like the Gourgeist and the Silvally are some really nice like kind of glue pieces for this team.
Yeah, it's a sweet team. Like the more I looked at it, the more I was like, oh, I really like this. All right, let's go and take a look at our next team here. So you have the Chicago Cinderace, and I mean you got Kyogre. Like, do we need to talk about the rest of the team? You know, like that one was on the chopping block for last season, so no one had a chance to drop Kyogre, but this set of coaches decided to keep Kyogre, as well as Zacian-Crowned. I didn't mention that earlier. But yeah, those two Pokemon last season, the coaches decided to ban. This season, they decided to keep it, and it fell down to the Chicago Cinderace here, and they picked up some really nice pieces for it. What do you think about the rest of this team?
I really like this team. I like that there's a nice balance of offense, support, and just overall kind of control. First off, I'll start with the obvious combos. Everybody who's played Series 12 or any restricted format in Sword and Shield, Torn Ogre, pretty obnoxious. Just straight up obnoxious. And then he's protected it with the Sarina, which we've also been very familiar with on ladder. If you've played ladder, like, can't use priority moves against this team, can't even risk doing it because you might have it switch in and eat a fake out, and then Kyogre just kind of obliterates you. But what I really like is the partner, the restricted partner he chose. I like Zeraora. I have used it a few times just like in Ranbats, but it's a nice pairing for this Kyogre because it absorbs the electric attacks and it's not weak to grass, which is nice, but it also gives this team fast fake out.
Yeah, definitely. It's very solid.
And then he throws in the Gothorita, which is like one of my favorite low tier picks in just about any league ever. I actually like it better than Gothitelle. No, not even joking about that. Just that Eviolite, bulk, and then you just get the shadow tag. It's ridiculous. And then he's rounded it out with like one of the best Trick Room sweepers in the game in Escavalier, and then Urshifu's just there to punch holes in whatever else is left. It's a well balanced team. I have to say that much.
Yeah, it really is. I think one thing that's also kind of nice here is this Volcarona too. Like having that huge resistance to those grass types, and if grass types come, then like Volcarona just absolutely shreds them with its stab attacks. It's just like, it's a really nice option. So I don't know if I really want to add anything else. Like, this team is amazing. Like, you kind of touched on all the pieces that I was thinking about here too. So definitely a sweet team.
Yep, for sure.
All right, next up we have the Vegas Volcaronas, and yeah, what do you think about this team?
I mean, so spoilers, this team originally had like Zekrom with the Groudon, and I liked that better than the Metagross, but I think overall, like in terms of like making it more of a sun themed centric team, he did a good job. He got a lot of good pieces. He's got 3 Sun Abusers. He's still managed to support the Groudon well in fast mode with, the Sun pieces like Helios can do Electro Web and Glare. And then he's got 2 very solid Trick Room setters, as well as a backup kind of sweeper in the Metagross. And then Feeney kind of just there for like terrain and seed Umbreon and stuff with the Liepard. I think it's a pretty nice team.
Yeah, I remember it came up in the Mythical Mayhem chat, but I looked at the trades and like I switched up the slides and I was like, I like this team a lot less now. I think Liepard is really nice. I forget what they had instead of it before, but like that Pokemon pickup is really solid tier, but I think that Zekrom is a really nice partner for Groudon just from a theoretical type synergy and kind of hitting the things that Groudon doesn't want to deal with. I think Zekrom does a pretty good job of that. But yeah, I think the only thing that like really I don't like about the team is I feel like Sun, one of the like biggest benefits of Sun is running like really fast sleep powders, and like I guess there's the anti-synergy of having Misty Terrain from the Tapu Fini. So I honestly wish that like the trades had been like drop Fini, pick up Metagross and Liepard and keep the Zekrom, and that would have looked really nice to me.
Well, to be fair, and I agree with you, I did think that was a little bit strange, but to be fair, Lilligant is one of the few chlorophyll sweepers I think that has a lot more in its utility back pocket. Like, fast after you is kind of really scary if you think about it, doing precipice blades right after. So I think that is nice, or like even just fast heat waves or expanding force or anything like that from any of the stronger members of the team. So I kind of get why he clung to the Fini.
Okay, yeah, that totally makes sense. I also really like the Credilli pick for this team too. I think that being able to absorb any of those water type attacks that could come in to threaten the Groudon, and then also just being able to just be a grass type and deal with like the grass attacks that Groudon doesn't want to deal with too. Like I really liked that pickup here, and not a Pokemon that I often see in are like really high power formats, but I thought it was a great pick.
Yeah, I mean, he dropped a whole restricted to better support the Groudon. I will say that he's at least done a good job of doing that, even if I think the team was better with the Groudon and the Zekrom.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's go and take a look at our next team then. We have the New England Chartriots. And I'll go and start off with this team. I think that this one has kind of some similarities to the first team that we looked at. Like the restricted pairing of just being really, really powerful special attacker and really, really powerful physical attackers with the Kyurem Black and the Calyrex Shadow are like that combination is just terrifying in the same way that like Zacian-Crowned and Kyurem White was pretty crazy for the first duo. So I think that that's like a really nice combination for these two mons. I think Clefairy is like a really nice piece to give those Pokemon a little bit more protection, and then of course Incineroar is just like the best pivot in the game to let those Pokemon get in for free and reduce the damage output that this team needs to deal with. The Suicune is also really nice. I really like that pick here. Just like a really bulky Tailwind setter, just like make sure that your Pokemon can always go first. But I kind of feel like if I were to prep against this team, I would prep against like the 5 Pokemon I just mentioned, and I'd ignore everything else. Like nothing else from the rest of this team makes me that scared of what's going on for them. So, what are your thoughts?
I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on everything that I definitely was going to say. It is definitely very similar to the first team. One thing I will say is I like the instant pickup because that is almost pretty much ensured to be Calyrex Shadow's Kryptonite, and the fact that this team now has it makes it a little bit harder to kind of deal with, so I thought that was kind of a nice little touch there. I genuinely don't understand why they added Shedinja to this team, but I guess it was just a low tier that was available. And I'm not seeing synergy with Cobalion either unless something on this team gets beat up that I just might not be aware of. But other than that, yeah, I would have to agree with you. I'd just prep for like the first 5. Prop maybe Thwacky just to respect like priority Grassy Glide and shenanigans with terrain, but I wouldn't prep for anything like to the right of Suicune that hard.
Yeah. I almost like the idea of having like Terrakion instead of Cobalion. Like I feel like a more powerful fighting type would be really nice, because like every week there's going to be dark types and there's going to be normal types. Like you have Calyrex Shadow, like everybody's going to bring that. So I think having like a super powerful fighting type would have been better than Cobalion, because like the base attack of Cobalion just isn't high enough that I would feel super threatened by it. But Terrakion, ooh, I'd be scared of that one.
Right, and you can like Scarf it, you have some great speed control with the Suicune, and even just redirecting with the Clefairy. Yeah, I would agree with you. I think at least Terrakion, and then like you already have a second steel in the Dugtrio Alola, so I don't even think Cobalion is, I feel like Cobalion's value is really going down here, because you can't even claim that you need the steel typing.
Yeah. But yeah, I think a sweet team. Like I think the combination of Calyrex Shadow and Karen Black, like that idea of mixing up your damage types from your restricted like that, I think is a really nice combination, especially in draft league like this. So anyway, let's go and take a look at the next team here. Barcelona Malamads. What are your thoughts on this team?
This is an interesting team. At first, I see Celesteela with Bolton, which is a very interesting, like, you know, side proc policy, just general support. Then I see that Gigas mode in the top right corner, and then at the bottom I see like really fascinating stuff with like Garchomp, Primarina, and then like Reshiram and Malamar and Whimsicott are all just kind of tying the team together. It like looks like a bunch of really obnoxious special attackers like at first, but then you realize like Celesteela can go both ends. Garchomp and Regigigas hit really hard. Even Malamar is a threat if it gets set up with contrary superpower. I like this team. I don't like, it's like a lot of different pieces, but they do seem to work really well together.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's kind of nice that like the Regigigas doesn't have to rely on the Weezing either. Like you can go Worry Seed on Whimsicott to just get rid of that slow start ability, and then Regigigas doesn't have to worry about if its partner is there or not, which is a pretty cool combination. And yeah, I think that like looking at this team, what's really nice about it is it feels like you have to prep for all 10 of these mons. You can't just look at one and go like, I don't need to worry about that. All of these Pokemon can be scary if you let them do their thing. I think Mr. Rime is really nice for a support piece here. Like it has Trick Room, Fake Out, always getting able to get rid of those screens is really nice, especially in these restricted formats like this, because sometimes your Pokemon just can't take hits, so the way you deal with this is by setting a screen, and then Mr. Rime comes in, and yeah, your Pokemon are just getting killed, so.
Yeah, I will say that one of the only sort of, I guess, glaring weaknesses I can see with this team is there are quite a few mons that are weak to ground, and there's really just the one. So I mean, the Whimsicott resists ground, but Whimsicott is not the bulkiest thing in the world. And the Celesteela is immune, and if Weezing decides to run Levitate, it would be immune, but I don't see it running that over any of its other abilities. But that's like the one, if I had to like really choose something about this team, I would say stands out is like some of its integral pieces might be a little bit vulnerable to ground.
That's a good point too, and especially when like I guess there's only one restricted Pokemon on this team with the Reshiram, and that Pokemon being weak to ground, like it's likely that people are bringing ground coverage against this team just at a base level, and so if the rest of the team is weak to it, then there may be a problem there. That's a good point. So, okay, let's go and take a look at this next team. Sapphire Salamence. All right, let me think about this one. I mean, I like the speed control options from this, and we just mentioned about the idea of screens being really important. Screens on Klefki is really nice to have. The Trick Room with Dialga is a nice option to have here as well, although I don't think most of the team necessarily wants to be in Trick Room. It just kind of depends on matchup, I think. And yeah, I think the Thievul Rillaboom combo, being able to just get that unburdened speed, and then potentially just Howl with Thievul to boost that Rillaboom attack on a Pokemon that already hits so hard is really solid here as well. And yeah, I don't know, what are your thoughts on this team?
See, I found this team to be very interesting. Like, it plays... So, like, I see very clearly defined cores. I see the Rotom, Heat, the Rillaboom, and the Urshifu Rapid Strike, Firewater Grass out the gate. And then Dialga and Sylveon are technically a 2-mon fantasy core. So he's got some good speed options, like you said, with the Unburden on the fast end, and he can set up the Dialga with Trick Room. And I believe Electabuzz gets Follow Me in this format, so there's that too. So I like it. It's a lot of offensive pieces. I think my only real concern about this team is they are mostly special attackers, and I do know that Lando can technically go either way.
Yep.
But like, if I'm prepping for this team, like I'm slapping on Avian to my bulkiest thing and like just praying among other things, because really the only physical offense that I'm looking at like out of the gate is Rillaboom and Urshifu, and maybe Landorus, and two of them are at least weak to ice. So that might be like my only real sort of point of contention with this team.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Not something I necessarily thought about, because I think that the power of those two Pokemon you mentioned with like Rillaboom and Urshifu is really nice, and being able to go through Protect is also really solid as well. Yeah, but having AV is really nice, because there are kind of probably the other big four hitters between Dialga, Sylveon, Landorus, and Rotom are mostly special. Although I think that like Landorus and Dialga can both run physical sets. I think like I had Dialga on season 2. Yeah, season 2, and I definitely ran a mix of physical and special sets with Dialga. Its move pool is just so vast that it's able to do that. But yeah, I think that's a good point, is that the main physical threats being that Rillaboom and Urshifu. AV is definitely going to come against this team.
Yeah, I will also say that my favorite part of this team is actually the Klefki. I like how the Klefki kind of just ties the team together with just the little bit of prankster support that is necessary, even outside of the unburdened fast mode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Okay, let's take a look at our next team here. The Sacramento Nidokings. What are your thoughts for this one?
Good luck. I have not played Series 10 in quite a while, but like I do remember that dealing with Xerneas and redirection, it was just an outright pain. And then he's got the best redirector pretty much in the game. So that immediately stands out to me as just being a problem. Just follow me, Geomancy, just have fun. But even more important than that is like the support piece. Like that's just the one mode, but he's supported it so well with an Unburden mode. He's supported it with even Defiant, so that you can't really reliably snarl into it. He's got Wide Guard with the Swampert. The Victini just there to check all of the things that would be super effective against it. Prankster. He's done a good job just rounding out the team around what I think initially started as just a 2-mon concept. I think that is probably the best way I can describe this team.
Yeah, definitely. I love Victini. I don't think I ever thought of it as being like that great of a partner from Xerneas, but like you talk about Poison and Steel, and like Victini crushes both of those types. So I think it's a really solid pickup to go along with Xerneas. I think you made a really good choice. And you mentioned the Galarian Zapdos with Defiant, like that's also amazing. I think we mentioned earlier about how important Wide Guard could be, and like Swampert has that, which is really solid for this team as well. One thing I will say is I don't think they have a Trick Room setter, so they're probably mostly going to be playing in the fast mode, which probably isn't that much of a problem because of how good this team is in that fast mode, but that could potentially be a weakness or a way to try to fight against this particular team.
Yeah, that is true, but I think at the same time it's like in some cases either this team is like really too bulky to care about being under Trick Room, or they're going to be obliterating you faster than you can set it up. Like I didn't even realize until you brought up how much you like Victini that it's nicely supported by Indeedee as well, covering up that ghost weakness because Indeedee is immune to it. Mm-hmm. And they do at least have quite a few taunt users to at least stop Trick Room from things that can be taunted and are not carrying Mental Herb. And the Morgan can just set up screens and the team can just kind of hope to stall it out. But I would say other than that, yeah, the Appleton is pretty slow, but it's not like an offensive presence in Trick Room.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Okay, let's look at our next team here. And we have the Washington Waifus. I kind of like the different options that this team has. It's kind of similar to the last one in terms of it's mostly going to be operating in that fast mode. It doesn't really have like a slow mode that it wants to make work together, but has a couple different options from like the Follow Me from Raichu or Wartortle. I think the Lightning Rod is really nice for this team to have when you have Gyarados and Veltal and Drifblim. All three of those Pokemon really don't want to get hit by electric type attacks. Yeah, and then like Prankster Screens on Meowstic is really nice as well. And just I guess another thing I really like about this team is that both Veltal and Genesect and Coco actually can all run physical or special sets. And so having that versatility is really nice for a team because you don't necessarily know exactly what you want to prep for.
Yeah, no, for sure. And this team hits hard. Like, there's just a lot of really strong offensive pieces here, and they do also have imprisoned Trick Room with the Meowstic, which is very nice because in slow mode I would say this is not this team's best friend is any form of Trick Room. There are just so many hard-hitting and fast offensive pieces here. I think the only thing that really I don't quite understand on this team is the coughing. I think it's just there's just a general utility piece, I guess, for a low tier, because he's not like abusing it with anything. But like that's the only thing that stands out as just being a little bit off.
I think similar to what we talked about for the last team, like you could potentially go with screens on Meowstic to kind of help with being able to survive through a Trick Room mode, even though I agree that I don't think Trick Room is this team's best friend. I think the last team probably did better with Trick Room to stall it out than this one would.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, you have the War Turtle to kind of run interference with the Follow Me, but I think just on the like a lot of these Pokemon are like so fast that it just wouldn't even matter in some cases, and some of them can be quite frail as well, depending on how they're run.
Okay, let's take a look at our next team as well. We have the Pittsburgh Celesteelas. This one, our coach here, Stranger Danger, talked about this combo when he was trying to figure out like power level of mythical mons, and he talked about the combination of using Grimmsnarl to swagger one of your opponent's Pokemon, and then using Marshadow to Spectral Thief to steal the boost and leave the opposing Pokemon confused, which is such a sweet combination that I love that he was able to grab that, because he was chatting about it before the draft even started. So for him to actually get that combination and be able to use it during the season, I think it's going to be really, really exciting. But yeah, just in general, I think this team is awesome. Like, all these Pokemon feel very valuable and really useful to a team. We've already talked about how amazing screens are with a couple different teams, and Grimmsnarl has that. I think it really says a lot about how powerful Grimmsnarl is when it's being used in like Series 12 leagues, where like Zacian-Crowned is on every team, and this Pokemon is weak to both of its stabs, and it still gets played. So it really goes to show how powerful that Pokemon is. And I think he's rounded out with some really nice, like a Trick Room mode with Bronzong that I think is pretty solid. A Fast Tail mode with I guess it's not technically Prankster, but it feels like Prankster with Gale Wings Tailwind from the Talonflame, as well as actually having like Prankster speed control from T-Wave Grimmsnarl. But yeah, I think the team is pretty solid. Yeah, what are your thoughts on it?
I am just happy he decided to go sort of balls to the wall and actually pick up the Marshadow for like a lot of the same reasons you said. Like, he was talking about it before the draft, and I was helping him with the information on Spectral Thief. I think it's a really cool Pokemon and very strong. Regardless of that combo, I just think Ghost and Fighting Stabs are like really, really hard for most things to kind of bust through. And then like you supported it with like a really powerful special attacking piece in the Eternatus. And Grimmsnarl, of course, runs 5 different million sets, so that's also going to be a pain to prep for. But even just without those 3, like, he's really shored up the rest of the team with good answers to Trick Mode, good answers to the Fast Mode, very bulky Steel type in the Heatran, and even though it is like weak to ground, but he's got at least 4 ground resist or immunities on the team. Yeah, and he's even rounded it out nicely with like the Eviolite Luxio for just like some Intimidate and Snarl shenanigans. It's a really nice team.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, let's take a look at our next one here. We have the Royal Kingdras. What are your thoughts on this one?
This is another one of those scary teams. Like, Palkia Melmetal, like, that just sounds not at all fun to deal with.
Yeah.
And then you've supported it with the Clefable for the redirection. Pheromosa is just an absolute unit. I drafted it almost every league that I can. It just like the speed swap shenanigans with some of this team's bulkier members is crazy. Not to mention just really fast, hard-hitting close combat and like speed control. Rotom Wash and Blaziken are some nice pieces to kind of, and Lurantis kind of nice little Firewater Grass core there. Purrloin, good for the Prankster, and it can even support the Lurantis with Fake Tears to boost its special defense. And then he's picked up Intimidate on top of that and a pretty solid Trick Room Center in the Runerigus. He's checked off a lot of boxes.
Yeah, no, this team is sweet. I think probably the one thing that because I had a Palkia plus a Steel type last season from Mythical Mayhem, and that combination of Pokemon tends to struggle a little bit with water types. So it's kind of nice to have Rotom Wash like that. Always switches into water types, no problem at all. I think Lurantis probably has some big shoes to fill to be able to deal that grass stab against those water type Pokemon as well. But the one thing that I personally was able to make use of was Spatial Run from Palkia to try to beat those water types, which can work at times, but water just tends to be so bulky that like Palkia, I think probably is going to have to do most of the work on being able to deal with those mons. But yeah, I 100% agree with you about that combination. Like, I'm a huge fan of Palkia plus a Steel type. You already mentioned Speed Swap. Like, oh my god. Speed Swapping Melmetal. Please, we want to see it. That would be so sick.
Yeah, it's a combination of really bulky threats and some really solid support. Like, the only thing if I really had to pick something about this team that I personally did not care for, I'm not the biggest Purloin fan. I think it's one of the weakest of all of the Prankster Mons, but I mean, you usually get it on a budget, so like, it's worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree. I think maybe the double ground types, like I almost would rather have like Cofagrigus rather than Runerigus for this team, but like I'm just trying to be nitpicky at that point, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's true. I didn't even think about that, but I mean, based on where he was in the draft order, maybe the Cofagrigus wasn't even on the board.
True. I do know it happened to be picked up. I don't know where it was on the list, but yeah, I know it was drafted. So, all right, let's go take a look at our next team here. The Salad Bowl. Okay, so this team, okay, it made trades. I remember thinking how I wanted to talk about this team, and now I forget. So, obviously, they have a really solid slow mode with P2 and Calyrex Shadow, or not Calyrex Shadow, Calyrex Ice, and Ferrothorn is a really nice combination of mons. I actually really like the low tier Gothita pick. Like, just having Shadow Tag is really nice for teams. It just makes prepping for it pretty interesting. And then they have like some nice redirection and Tailwind support. Both Togekiss and Latias get Tailwind for this. Actually, I think that Salazzle also gets Follow Me. Don't quote me on that though, because so many different weird Pokemon are able to get it now. But obviously, you're going to use Togekiss more than you use Follow Me for Salazzle. But that's a really nice combination of Pokemon as well. What are your thoughts on this one?
I will say that I do remember sort of what this team looked like before trades, and I know one of the biggest critiques was not having Fake Out, so I do agree with you that the low tier Gothita pick is nice. Also, the Salazzle pick is nice just for like really fast Fake Out. And I'm a big Salazzle fan. I think it's a great mon, especially if you really don't like fairy types, which this team doesn't really have too much problem with per se. It's really just two mons weak to fairy. I think the one thing that I find so ironically funny about this team is that there are quite a lot of members of this team that don't like ice attacks, and he's drafted like the best ice type like literally in the game. So I feel like dealing with like fire and ice attacks might be a little problematic. I think Mantine is actually going to be the unsung hero of this whole team because it supports both the slow mode and I think even the fast mode kind of well with some utility moves.
Interesting. I don't know if I thought about Mantine being that powerful, but I'm pretty excited to see how he does because I think this has some really interesting... It has an interesting collection of Pokemon. I really want to see Zoroark used really well for this team. I think like the use of Zoroark could make or break some matchups. If you don't know that there's a Calyrex Ice on the field, or you think there's a, excuse me, if you think there's a Calyrex Ice on the field and it's actually a Zoroark, like, oof, that could be rough.
Oh, I completely agree, and I think that like that and just even that and the Mantine I would say like are my predictions for mons that will kind of go in very nicely because like even the Calyrex Ice and the Ferrothorn, they really don't like fire, and like Latias is not weak to it, but you know I think Mantine really checks fire mons just a little bit harder than some of the other mons are. But yeah, like you said, if he leads Zoroark disguised as Calyrex Ice or even as like Porygon too. Like, if you think you're gonna be under Trick Room and you perform an anti-Trick Room measure and you get hosed, like, that's a problem for you.
Yeah, you could really put people on the back foot with that one. Alright, let's take a look at the next one here. We have the Shenandoah Sun Warriors. And let's hear your thoughts on this one.
Magearna is quite a force to be reckoned with, and
Yeah.
I love Lunala. I think this is a really solid put-together team. He's got a lot of redirection for the 2 restricteds. I believe the Magmortar and the Blastoise both get Follow Me, so that's a pain. He's got Psychic Terrain just to not have to deal with Fake Out if he so chooses. He's also got it on Burden. Thundy T, 2 Prankster users, one that can be more offensive. Again, kind of checking all the boxes. Quagsire is great against setup mons. I've drafted it in a lot of non-max leagues before. I love it. And then he just rounds it out with Ditto. Like, he basically just says, like, you know what? If for whatever reason you can beat me, I'm gonna beat you with what you used to beat me. So it's a very well put together team.
Yeah, I really like this team. I think when I originally put them down, I had it as like almost the #1 spot. Because I think that like the Lunala beats its own ghost checks, and then Magearna beats the dark checks to Lunala. So like those 2 cover each other really well. I think my biggest critique and why I personally had it a little bit lower in my power rankings is that this team is like all special attackers.
True. Outside of probably the Thundurus, arguably the Blastoise, and arguably the Quagsire, yeah, I can definitely say that as being true.
Yeah. So I kind of thought that like Snarl was going to be used against this team all the time, and they might have some difficulties dealing with that. I think probably Thundurus might need to be Defiant in several matchups just so that he doesn't get absolutely wrecked by that move. Like an Umbreon with like Snarl might be potentially hard to break. I guess you do have Magearna, so maybe not. But like a Snarl Pokemon just in general might be kind of difficult. But actually, something I forgot about when I was thinking about that is I believe Cottony has Fake Tears since Whimsicott does. Yeah, so that might be really sweet too. Oh man. With all these special attackers, Fake Tears would be absolutely valuable.
Yeah, and honestly, even Magmortar could arguably run a physical set, because I know it gets like Flare Blitz and Rock Slide and a whole bunch of like random physical coverage that's like pretty high base power stuff, and I don't think its physical attack side is that terrible.
I know it's less than 100, but yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, like if he really had to, like he could do it, but yeah, it's I would agree with that critique.
All right, let's take a look at our next one. Yes, the Brooklyn Blasters. And here's the Cofagrigus that we were thinking about, which I think in that spot is the same round as the Runerigus. So maybe that other coach did have Cofagrigus on their mind and got sniped of it. But anyway, what are your thoughts on this one?
I like this team. There's some very interesting pieces. Like you said about the whole Cofagrigus, depending on which way the draft order was going, yeah, the Royal Kingdras might have just missed out on it, and they just went with the second best thing, really. Base form Zacian is really interesting to see in draft, because it does still get the attack boost, but you lose both the benefit and obviously the drawbacks of having that steel type. I feel like you lose more benefits than you do drawbacks, because yeah, you're not weak to fire anymore or ground, but like as a fairy type, you're not resisting them either. The Solgaleo is interesting. I usually see it paired with like, oh, never mind, there's a Raikou there for inner focus. Bulldoze. Yeah, he's got the Lele mode. I think the only thing, unless there's a follow me user that I'm not aware of, I think the only thing that I would like to see is maybe just a little bit of redirection, especially to support like the Snorlax and the Mudsteel just a little bit more.
Yeah, I can.
But other than that, I do actually like this team. I think it can definitely do some work.
Yeah, I think the Milotic is really nice for this team. We've talked about like Defiant and competitive, and so I think or at least we've talked about Intimidate. So having the competitive option, I think, is really nice here, because you mentioned about Zacian still getting that Intrepid Sword attack boost means that people are probably going to want to bring some Intimidate against this team, and of course Milotic loves to get that competitive boost. Yeah, pretty sweet team, I think.
Yep, for sure. And I think Choice Band Play Rough will still do quite a truck ton of damage into anything that doesn't resist it.
Oh my god, I completely forgot about that. Yeah, the Zacian gets its item, which is not something that Crown gets to say.
Yep. So there's a lot of flexibility in like where that like piece can go, and like Solgaleo eats like can kind of go tit a tat with steel types that Zacian doesn't like, and poison types like almost all day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very nice restricted combo. Okay, this is our last team. So I'll go and start us off here. I think that grabbing Gothitelle, we've talked about Gothita, we've talked about Gothorita, and now we have Gothitelle, and they valued it so much that they decided to get it second pick, which I think is a really nice option to have in this format. You get Fake Out, Shadow Tag is amazing, Trick Room is an option to help support that Necrozma Dustbang, which is a bit on the slower side compared to most restricted combos. I like that they have a rain mode here. It kind of helps to support the Necrozma Dustbang, so you don't have to worry about so much about those ground types or those fire types. Having Intimidate from Arcanine is obviously amazing. And then I mentioned the Trick Room idea with Gothitelle, but you also have Mimikyu, which is fantastic at setting Trick Room, and then a really nice Trick Room sweeper, aside from the Necrozma Dustbang with Machamp. I feel like Zygarde, I don't know, I'm not sure how I feel about Zygarde on this team. What are your thoughts about that one?
So it was funny, I was just thinking the same thing. I'm like in the middle, like at the same time, I think Zygarde on a team that can't guarantee Misty Terrain won't stay up the whole battle is actually pretty bad. Even though that obviously gives it a benefit, but like weakening one of your stabs I just think that's bad. On the other hand, at the very least, Shadow Tag plus Zygarde against the wrong lead actually can spell doom, even for as slow as Zygarde is at setting up, because at least Gothitelle gets Heal Pulse, so you can kind of manage it while it's just kind of sitting there, and if you're not allowed to switch, like you're kind of doomed.
Oh my god, I love that. I didn't even think about that. Yeah,
so I do like it just for like that reason alone. I think it provides a valuable niche for this team. I will say that it's funny because looking at this team like on its face, it reminds me of a lot of Celesteela comps, like bulky steel type supported by rain mode, which works so well because Necrozma already gets Prism Armor, which weakens like super effective stuff even more. Mm-hmm. And then you have like the Obstagoon and the Machamp that deal with like the Ghost and the Dark weakness that a lot of the other members of the team share. And then you've just kind of rounded it out with like a little bit of a fast mode with the Zapdos and the Arcanine. I do like this team a lot. It's an interesting wheel team, I will say that much. I would have never even thought to pair Necrozma and Zygarde together, but Shadow Tag definitely makes it happen.
Yeah, that's amazing. I did not put that together, but yeah, if you have the wrong lead and Zygarde can, like, I don't know, Dragon Dance and Coil, and like you heal it up with that Heal Pulse like you were talking about, like, oof, that Pokemon becomes something to be reckoned with. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the Gothitelle is definitely playing a key role here. At the same time, like, this team is just not even easy to prep for, even if you didn't have Shadow Tag. Because I would say the same thing, even if it was a redirection mon. Just like the Zygarde is nicely supported by like a Goth, any member of like that family or like the Clefairy family, like something that can self heal Pulse or heal the Zygarde really kind of brings it together.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so that was the last team for us to take a look at. So the next slide is going to have my ordering for my top team down to what I think is the very bottom of this league. And before we even go into that, that was hecka hard to do. Some of these teams look really strong. So trying to decide what was the best and what I thought was the worst is definitely not easy. So let's go and take a look at that list right now. And so let me explain my graphic a little bit here. I have Chicago Cinderace as the very best team out of the ones we've seen. Barcelona Malamads is right below that. And then I go up to the top for the next row. So Pittsburgh Celesteelas down to the Sacramento Nidokings, up to the roll of Kingdras, and kind of continue that until we get to the Georgia Granbulldawgs. So now we get to the interesting part to see how much you remember about the teams we've looked at.
Well, you know, honestly, I don't disagree with I will tell you what I agree with. I agree with the last two teams. I do think the Bulldogs and the New England Chartriots are some of the weakest in terms of like overall like synergy, but are not completely offset by their offensive pieces. Because we did talk about how like the Pogging Porygons, which we've ranked as number 4, and the Chartriots have like the same kind of like min-max with their restricted pair, like really strong physical attacker, really strong special attacker. So you can see like how you valued how the rest of the team came together with how those coaches built. I would definitely say you nailed my number 1 team. I also think the Chicago Cinderace is like just by far, honestly, it's not even really that close for me. I just think it's such a well put together team. I probably would have I might have put the Malamads maybe like in 3rd, or like your top 5. I agree with. I'll just put it that way. I might have a different order, but I do agree that those are some of the strongest teams that we have. And then Royal Kingdras kind of really running right behind them is in agreement with that as well. But yeah, I think Solinar's team down there, the Shenandoah Sun Warriors, is a good sort of like benchmark for like where the teams are in the top half and the bottom half, because I feel like it's probably like the most balanced team we have. But yeah, that's what I think of your power rankings for sure.
Yeah, I think I don't know if there's anything I necessarily would have changed in my ordering. I think after talking, I kind of like the Midland Marowaks team a little bit more. I might have moved them up, but I don't know exactly where I would have put them. Just because that was the team that had the Ho-Oh, Volcanion, and like Mienshao that we really liked. Yeah, I think the more I looked at that team, the more I liked it. So I might have moved that one up a little bit more, but I don't know exactly where I'd place it. But I always enjoy doing power rankings, especially with someone else, because trying to figure out how strong teams are is it is not always easy, because sometimes you see something that someone else doesn't see, or catch an interaction that doesn't seem very obvious. And obviously the more you look at teams, the more you find combinations that seem really strong. So
yeah, I really like doing power rankings because you just can see coaches kind of playstyle play out and how they drafted and what they drafted, because everybody values something different. So even if you're like hearing us talk about it and you see a combination on your team and we ranked it lower, like don't let that stop you. Like bring it out, and so that we can all see it. Like every team here definitely has something to offer.
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of brings us to the end of this. Thank you for joining me, Mismag, on putting together these power rankings. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great.
Yep. And so for all of you, the viewer, if you would like to check out some more of our coaches, I think we have a couple, not very many. I think we have a couple that record or have like Twitch channels, for example. But if you check out the description and you can find the link to the TGR server, then you can definitely hop in there. We have a channel specifically designed for all of our content creators, so you can check out any battles throughout the season. I'm very excited to see how some of these teams do this season, because even some of those teams that I have ranked on the lower end, I think have quite a bit of power to them. And of course, you can't count out the Vegas Volcaronas that I actually have as like one of the bottom 3 teams, but they won the league last season, so you definitely can't count out a coach that's won the league in the past.
Ain't that the truth?
Definitely. So definitely, if you'd like to catch out some more of the content, whether it is all these different coaches that are here, I'm not participating in it, but definitely stick around, like, subscribe, and all that stuff. I'll have some more potential to have like an end of season power rankings for this league, but I have my own different leagues that I play in, whether they are VGC singles or the Masters of Sword and Shield, which is a dual format league. Definitely stick around, like, subscribe, and all that stuff, and we'll catch you on the next one.